She had heard that the most excruciating torture for a woman wasn't a dungeon or iron maidens. It was laughter, not when they make you laugh, but when they force you to laugh at their horrible jokes. It's worse than death, she'd said, and now she would make her speak through laughter. It all started one night during a banquet held by Lord and Lady Whitmore in their sprawling manor house. All was merrymaking and joviality until Lord Whitmore's advisor suddenly doubled over, clutching his stomach in pain. Then he collapsed on the floor, eyes wide with terror. Soon, it became clear that he had been poisoned. Suspicion immediately fell on Isabella, a 19-year-old maid who had served the chalice to the advisor just moments before his collapse. In spite of her innocence, she found herself dragged away from the panicked crowd and brought before Lady Whitmore, who sat regally on a gilded throne-like chair, surveying the scene like an all-powerful monarch. "So, you were the one who attended to Master Aldridge just before his unfortunate demise," she stated, more than asked. "My lady, I swear it was an accident," stammered Isabella, desperately trying to explain. "I did not poison him. I don't know how he died," but Lady Whitmore waved her hand dismissively, silencing her. There would be no dungeon for Isabella, no whips or cruel interrogations. Lady Whitmore preferred a more psychological form of punishment, something much crueler and more effective. "We will make you speak through laughter," she declared, her voice ringing with a chilling certainty. "You will tell us everything we want to know, every secret you're hiding. And you won't even realize it, not until it's too late." Before Isabella could comprehend what was happening, two burly guards approached her and gently but firmly tied her hands behind her back with silk scarves. She struggled against them, fear constricting her throat. "What are you doing? Let me go," she cried. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. Then they led her to a nearby room where a luxurious red velvet chaise lounge awaited. With a flick of her wrist, Lady Whitmore instructed them to remove her shoes. Isabella's bare feet made contact with the freezing cold stone floor, and as she recoiled, her ankles and wrists were bound securely behind the lounge's headrest. With Isabella helpless and exposed, Lady Whitmore took her seat on a matching ottoman beside the couch. A sinister smile played on her lips. The guests watched in rapt attention, their faces a mix of morbid fascination and grim anticipation. Without warning, Lady Whitmore leaned forward and lightly touched Isabella's ribs. The maid gasped and a surprised giggle escaped her lips. Instinctively, she tried to pull away, but the touch was feather-light and it happened so fast she couldn't react effectively. Encouraged by her reaction, Lady Whitmore continued, moving her fingers across Isabella's collarbone, then trailing down her neck. Each contact was brief and gentle, yet it elicited involuntary giggles from the captive maid. From there, she progressed to Isabella's shoulders, then moved on to her arms, lightly pinching her biceps and gently stroking her elbows. All the while, the guests watched intently, a mixture of horror and intrigue on their faces. Isabella, initially confused, began to grasp the horrifying reality of her situation. This was no accident. Lady Whitmore was deliberately tickling her, forcing her into fits of laughter. And each peal of laughter drained her strength and resolve. The room filled with her uncontrollable giggles, which quickly escalated into full-blown laughter. It was a sound that did not reflect any joy or amusement, but rather desperation and fear. After what felt like hours, Lady Whitmore finally pulled back, observing her handiwork with a critical eye. On Isabella's face, beads of sweat mingled with tears, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. Her laughter subsided into shaky gasps. Taking this as a cue, Lady Whitmore rose from the ottoman, signaling to the guards to untie Isabella's bonds. However, instead of setting her free, they simply repositioned her on the chaise lounge, straddling it with her legs wide apart. The guests, unable to contain themselves, burst into applause, their cheers echoing through the great hall. For a moment, Isabella wanted to scream, to claw at her bonds, to do anything but submit. But exhaustion and humiliation had sapped her strength. As if sensing her capitulation, Lady Whitmore returned to her throne-like chair and resumed her regal pose, once again surveying the scene with detached amusement. Then, in a voice that was deceptively sweet, she addressed Isabella. "Now, my dear girl, let's begin again." This time, her touch was less tentative. She dug her fingers into Isabella's ribs, sending fresh peals of laughter echoing through the hall. It was a cruel parody of merriment, a mockery of joy. Ignoring the protests and muffled cries coming from the captive maid, Lady Whitmore relentlessly attacked Isabella's sides, pinching and poking until tears streamed down her face. At this point, the guests were on their feet, their cheers growing louder, their faces flushed with excitement and morbid curiosity. They leaned in, eager to witness Isabella's humiliation and eager to participate in their mistress's twisted game. Through her tears, Isabella could see their faces contorted with glee, hear their laughter ringing in her ears. It was a chorus of torment, a symphony of suffering. Her whole body trembled with exhaustion, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Still, she fought against the overwhelming urge to submit, to let the laughter consume her. Finally, she broke. Her shoulders slumped, her laughter echoing through the hall, her voice hoarse and broken. Between gasps, she cried out, "It was me!" "I did it." Lady Whitmore smiled, her triumph evident. She didn't care whether Isabella confessed out of remorse or insanity. To her, the confession was irrelevant. What mattered was the submission. With a wave of her hand, she signaled to the guards to release Isabella. The moment she was set free, she stumbled, her knees threatening to buckle beneath her. She looked up at Lady Whitmore, her eyes filled with a profound sadness and defeat. For a moment, their gazes locked, and in that instant, Isabella saw not just cruelty, but an unnerving sense of satisfaction in Lady Whitmore's eyes. It was the look of a predator who had just secured her prey. Then, as if dismissing her, Lady Whitmore turned back to the cheering crowd, her attention no longer on the broken maid before her. Glancing around at the expectant faces, Isabella realized she had nowhere to escape. The entire household was watching her, waiting for her to rise from her humiliating defeat. With trembling hands and a broken spirit, she slowly rose from the chaise lounge. As she walked away, she could feel their gazes boring into her back. She was ordered to return to her duties as though nothing had transpired, to serve and obey as if her spirit hadn't been crushed, her laughter stolen. And so, the life of the young maid was irrevocably altered. The simple act of serving a glass of wine became a life sentence of servitude, her laughter forever tainted by the memory of that fateful night. From that day forward, the memory of Lady Whitmore's dark secret hung over the household like a shroud. Every servant lived in fear, understanding the terrible price of disobedience, the crushing weight of Lady Whitmore's wrath. For those who dared defy her, laughter ceased to be the sound of joy and became the echo of despair. And in the annals of their servitude, the tale of Isabella, the maid who laughed herself to tears, became a haunting reminder of the true cost of crossing their merciless mistress. And that, dear reader, is the chilling tale of Lady Whitmore and her dark secret, a cautionary narrative that laughter, like any other facet of human experience, can be warped and wielded as a weapon. If you enjoyed this macabre episode, do remember to subscribe. And should you find yourself yearning for more tales of suspense and intrigue, do not hesitate to request your desired themes or leave your comments below.